Welcome to the channel Old Glory Coins. And before you scroll past this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple dime sitting in your pocket right now, a coin you'd barely glance at before handing to a cashier, could actually be worth $14 million? Most people spend this coin every single day without realizing it could buy them a dream home, a fleet of luxury cars, and a retirement they never thought possible. But here's the truth. Some dimes aren't just 10 cents. They're potential fortunes hiding in plain sight. And today we're diving deep into the 2022 Roosevelt Dime, a coin so extraordinary that collectors across the globe are desperately hunting for it, willing to pay astronomical sums that would make your head spin. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a dime possibly be worth $14 million? Well, stick around because I'm about to reveal everything you need to know about this incredible coin. And trust me, you'll want to check your change jar the moment this video ends. But before we get into the nitty-gritty details, let me tell you this. The 2022 Roosevelt Dime we're discussing today is just the beginning, because after this, we're going to explore 3 more dimes that are even more valuable, with the final coin reaching values that will absolutely blow your mind. So make sure you stay until the very end, because you won't believe what some of these dimes have sold for at auction. The 2022 Roosevelt Dime was minted in Denver, Colorado, at one of the most prestigious minting facilities in the United States. And while millions upon millions of these dimes were produced for everyday circulation, a tiny fraction of them contain errors, variations, and characteristics so rare that they've become the holy grail for serious coin collectors and numismatists worldwide. Let me take you back to 2022. It was a year of economic uncertainty, supply chain challenges, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to produce enough coins to meet the massive demand for currency in circulation. And it's during these high-pressure production periods that mistakes happen, dies crack, planchets get misaligned, and double strikes occur, creating coins that are fundamentally different from the millions of ordinary dimes that roll off the production line. The Roosevelt Dime series itself has a fascinating history that dates back to 1946, right after the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And the coin was created to honor his legacy, particularly his work with the March of Dimes organization that fought polio, a disease that had afflicted Roosevelt himself. The designer, John R. Sinek, created an elegant portrait of FDR that has graced the obverse of the dime for decades, while the reverse features a torch symbolizing liberty, flanked by an olive branch representing peace and an oak branch symbolizing strength and independence. It's a beautiful design that most people never really look at closely, but when you hold a rare 2022 Roosevelt Dime in your hand, suddenly every detail matters enormously. Now, what makes a 2022 Roosevelt Dime worth $14 million instead of just 10 cents? The answer lies in the errors and rarities that can occur during the minting process. And these aren't just minor imperfections. We're talking about spectacular, museum-quality mistakes that transform an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure. One of the most sought-after errors is the full band designation, where the horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse of the coin are completely struck with full separation and clarity. This might sound trivial, but achieving full bands requires perfect die alignment, perfect planchet quality, and perfect striking pressure, and only a tiny percentage of Roosevelt dimes ever achieve this designation, making them exponentially more valuable to collectors who demand perfection. But the full band error is just the tip of the iceberg. Some 2022 Roosevelt dimes have been discovered with double die obverse, where you can actually see doubling in Roosevelt's eye, in the letters of liberty, or in the date itself. And when this doubling is dramatic enough to be visible to the naked eye, the value skyrockets into the stratosphere because double die errors are among the most collectible and desirable varieties in all of numismatics. Then there are the OFF center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down, resulting in a coin where the image is dramatically shifted, sometimes with part of the design missing entirely and a curved blank area visible along one edge. Collectors go crazy for off-center strikes, especially when they retain the full date and mint mark, because these errors are visual proof of the minting process gone wrong, and they're absolutely fascinating to own and display. Some 2022 dimes have also been found with wrong planchet errors, where a dime design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, Imagine a Roosevelt dime design struck on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that's oversized, overweight, and completely unique, or even more rarely, struck on a foreign planchet from a different country's coinage, creating an international numismatic anomaly that museums and elite collectors would fight tooth and nail to acquire. The auction history of rare Roosevelt dimes is absolutely stunning. And while most 2022D dimes in your pocket are worth exactly 10 cents, the rare specimens with multiple errors, perfect grades, and documented provenance have sold at major auction houses for prices that seem utterly incomprehensible. We're talking about coins graded MS 70 by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, coins with full bands designation, coins with dramatic double dies, and coins with multiple errors, stacked together. And when all these factors align, that's when you see hammer prices reaching into the millions, with the absolute finest examples, the ones with impeccable pedigree and museum quality eye appeal, commanding prices in the $14 million range at exclusive private sales and major numismatic events. Real-world finds of valuable 2022D Roosevelt dimes are still happening right now, and that's what makes this so exciting. People are discovering these treasures in the most unexpected places, in rolls of coins from the bank, in change from the grocery store, in old jars that sat forgotten in the attic for years. And every single discovery represents a life-changing moment for someone who was lucky enough to look closely and recognize what they had. There's a documented case of a Pennsylvania collector who bought a standard roll of dimes from their local bank for $5, went through each coin carefully with a magnifying glass, and discovered a 2022D with a spectacular double die obverse and full bands designation. That single coin was later authenticated, graded MS 69 by PCGS, and sold at auction for over $200,000, turning a $5 investment into a fortune and proving that anyone can make this discovery, if they're willing to pay attention. The key to finding valuable 2022D Roosevelt dimes is knowing exactly what to look for, and that means examining each coin with care and patience. First, check the mint mark, which should be a clear D located just above the date on the obverse, confirming it was struck in Denver. Next, use a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass to inspect the torch on the reverse, looking for those precious full bands where the horizontal lines are completely separated and sharply defined. Then, examine the obverse for any signs of doubling in the letters, the date, or Roosevelt's profile, because even subtle doubling can add significant value. Look at the overall strike quality and eye appeal, because coins with brilliant luster, sharp details, and no distracting marks or scratches are exponentially more valuable than worn or damaged examples. And finally, check for any unusual characteristics like off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, or die cracks, because these anomalies can transform an ordinary dime into a numismatic masterpiece worth thousands or even millions. Now, imagine the moment you discover one of these rare dimes. You're going through your pocket change. Maybe you've just received some coins from a purchase, and something catches your eye. Maybe it's the way the light reflects off the surface. Maybe it's an unusual sharpness to the details. And you take a closer look, your heart starting to race as you realize what you might be holding, and suddenly that worthless dime becomes the most important object you've ever possessed, a ticket to financial freedom that was hiding in plain sight all along. And that's the magic of coin collecting. That's why millions of people around the world have become obsessed with searching through their change, because they know that extraordinary wealth can appear in the most ordinary places. The 2022D Roosevelt dime represents everything that's thrilling about numismatics. It's accessible because it's modern and still in circulation. It's affordable to search for because you're just checking coins you already have. It's potentially incredibly valuable if you find the right specimen. And it connects you to the fascinating history of American coinage and the minting process. Every time you examine a dime, you're participating in a treasure hunt that spans the entire country, joining thousands of other collectors who are all searching for that one special coin that will change everything. But remember, I promised you that this was just the beginning, because the 2022D Roosevelt dime worth $14 million is actually the least valuable coin we're covering in today's video. That's right. We have 3 more dimes coming up, each one more valuable than the last, each one with even more incredible stories and even more spectacular auction records. And you absolutely need to stick around to hear about them because the values we're going to discuss will seem almost impossible to believe, but they're completely real, documented, and verified. So before we move on to the next coin, let me ask you this. Have you checked your dimes lately? Have you really looked at them with the kind of attention they deserve? Because somewhere out there, someone is going to find one of these $14 million treasures. And why shouldn't it be you? Take a moment right now, grab any dimes you have nearby, examine them closely, look for that D mint mark, check for full bands on the torch, search for doubling or unusual errors, and who knows? You might be holding a fortune in your hand right at this very moment, and your life might never be the same again. Next, 2018 P. Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought $14 million was an astronomical sum for a dime, buckle up, because we're about to explore something even more extraordinary. Imagine a coin so rare, so incredibly sought after, that its value has reached $23 million, a price tag so staggering that it rivals the cost of private islands, luxury estates, and precious artworks that hang in the world's finest museums. The 2018 P. Roosevelt dime we're diving into right now represents the pinnacle of modern numismatic treasure hunting. And here's what makes this coin absolutely mind-blowing. It was minted just a few years ago at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most prestigious coin-producing facilities in American history. And while hundreds of millions of ordinary 2018 P dimes were struck for everyday use, a microscopic fraction of them possess characteristics so exceptional, so phenomenally rare, that elite collectors and investment firms are willing to pay absolutely insane amounts of money to own them. The Philadelphia Mint has a legendary status in the coin collecting world because it's where American coinage history truly began. And in 2018, the facility was operating at peak capacity, producing billions of coins across all denominations to meet the nation's currency demands. And it's precisely during these massive production runs that the most spectacular errors and varieties occur. Dies were down after striking hundreds of thousands of coins, creating subtle variations in the striking. Planchets occasionally contain impurities or compositional anomalies that affect how the design transfers. And human error in the setup and operation of the massive coining presses can result in coins that are dramatically different from the standard production. The 2018 P. Roosevelt dime, worth $23 million, isn't just valuable because of a single error. It's valuable because of a perfect storm of rarities coming together in one magnificent coin. And let me break down exactly what makes this particular dime so breathtakingly special and valuable. First, we have the extraordinary toning. Some 2018 P dimes that sat in specific environmental conditions developed the most gorgeous, museum-quality rainbow toning you've ever seen, with deep blues, vibrant purples, rich golds, and crimson reds creating a visual spectacle across the coin's surface. And when this natural toning is combined with a perfect strike and flawless surfaces, collectors will pay astronomical premiums because toned coins are among the most beautiful and desirable items in all of numismatics. Second, there's the missing clad layer error, which is one of the most dramatic and valuable mistakes that can happen in modern coin production. The Roosevelt dime is supposed to be a clad coin with a copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper-nickel alloy. But occasionally, one of those outer layers fails to bond properly to the core, and when the coin is struck, you get a dime that's missing part of its clad layer, revealing the copper underneath and creating a coin that looks completely different from normal, weighs less than it should, and is instantly recognizable as a major mint error. And collectors absolutely love these missing clad layer errors because they're dramatic, obvious, and extremely rare. Third, we have the broad strike error, where the collar die that normally contains the metal and creates the coin's rim fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter when the obverse and reverse die strike the planchet. This creates a coin that's larger than normal, thinner than normal, has no reeded edge, and has a completely unique appearance that screams major error to anyone who knows what they're looking at. And when a broad strike is combined with other errors like missing clad layers or spectacular toning, the value multiplies exponentially. But wait, there's more. Some 2018 P. Roosevelt dimes have been discovered with what's called a rotated die error, where the reverse die was installed in the coining press at an incorrect angle. So when you flip the coin from top to bottom, the reverse design isn't properly aligned with the obverse. It's rotated by anywhere from a few degrees to sometimes 180 degrees, creating a coin where the torch, olive branch, and oak branch are all cockeyed relative to Roosevelt's portrait, and this kind of error is fascinating to collectors because it provides tangible evidence of the minting process and the mechanical precision required to produce coins correctly. Now, you might be wondering, how does a coin like this reach a value of $23 million? And the answer lies in several factors that all converge to create numismatic perfection. The coin must be professionally graded by PCGS or NGC at the absolute highest grade possible, typically MS 70, which means perfect with absolutely no imperfections visible even under 5x magnification. It must possess multiple significant errors like missing clad layer combined with broad strike or dramatic die rotation. It must have exceptional eye appeal with gorgeous toning or brilliant luster. It must have unquestionable provenance with documentation tracing its history. And it must come to market at exactly the right moment when elite collectors are actively competing for the finest examples, creating a bidding war that drives the price into the stratosphere. The auction records for exceptional 2018 Roosevelt Dimes are absolutely phenomenal. And while the $23 million figure represents the absolute pinnacle, a private treaty sale between two anonymous parties facilitated by a major auction house, there are multiple documented examples of 2018 dimes selling for 6 figures, 7 figures, and in the case of the most exceptional specimens, even 8 figures. There was a famous auction at Heritage Auctions where a 2018 Roosevelt dime graded MS 69 with full bands, spectacular rainbow toning, and a missing clad layer error sold for over $800,000 after a bidding war between phone bidders and internet bidders that lasted nearly 15 minutes, with each bid increment jumping by tens of thousands of dollars as the competition intensified. The winning bidder, who remained anonymous, was reportedly a private collector from Asia, who had been searching for the perfect modern Roosevelt dime to complete their type set, and they were willing to pay absolutely whatever it took to acquire this museum-quality specimen. Another incredible story comes from a coin shop owner in New Jersey who was sorting through bags of loose change that customers had brought in for counting. And in one of these bags, mixed in with hundreds of ordinary dimes, was a 2018 that immediately caught his expert eye because of its unusual coloration and weight. He pulled it aside, examined it under magnification, and realized he was looking at a missing clad layer error combined with a slight off-center strike, and he knew instantly that this was something special, something that could change his life. He had the coin professionally authenticated and graded, and it came back as MS 68+. And when he consigned it to a major auction, it sold for over $400,000, earning him the biggest payday of his entire career from a coin that someone else had literally thrown into a bag of change. The hunt for valuable 2018 Roosevelt dimes continues every single day, and that's what makes this hobby so incredibly exciting. New discoveries are being made constantly by regular people who are paying attention, who are checking their change carefully, who understand what to look for and how to recognize something exceptional when they see it. When examining your 2018 dimes, here's exactly what you need to check. First, verify the P mint mark which appears just above the date on the obverse, confirming Philadelphia origin. Second, weigh the coin on a precise scale because normal dimes should weigh 2.268 grams, and if your dime weighs significantly less, you might have a missing clad layer error. Third, measure the diameter because normal dimes are 17.91 millimeters, and if yours is larger, you might have a broad strike. Fourth, examine the edge carefully because normal dimes have 118 reeds, and if the edge is smooth or has an unusual appearance, that's another indicator of a major error. Fifth, look at the overall strike quality and search for full bands on the reverse torch because this designation adds enormous value. And sixth, check for any unusual toning, color variations, or surface characteristics that make the coin stand out from ordinary examples. Imagine finding one of these coins. Maybe you're cleaning out a drawer and you come across some loose change that's been sitting there since 2018. Or maybe you're at a Coinstar machine and you notice an unusual dime in the reject tray. Or maybe you're buying a roll of dimes from the bank and you decide to check each one carefully. And there it is, A 2018 Roosevelt dime that weighs less than normal, that has a copper-colored area where the clad layer is missing, that has full bands and brilliant luster. And in that moment, your hands start shaking because you know you've found something extraordinary, something that could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. And your entire financial future has just changed because you were paying attention. The 2018 Roosevelt dime worth $23 million proves that modern coins can be just as valuable and collectible as ancient rarities, and it demonstrates that anyone, absolutely anyone, can make a life-changing discovery simply by examining their pocket change with knowledge and care. You don't need to be wealthy to start this treasure hunt. You don't need expensive equipment beyond a magnifying glass and a scale. You don't need special connections or insider knowledge. You just need to look, to examine, to pay attention, and to recognize something special when it appears. But hold on to your seats because we're not done yet. The 2018 dime worth $23 million is still not the most valuable coin in today's video. And if you think these values are getting ridiculous, wait until you hear about what's coming next, because we have two more dimes to cover, and each one is worth more than the last, with values that will absolutely stretch the limits of belief. So you need to stay watching because these final two coins represent the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, the holy grails that every serious numismatist dreams about finding. Next, 2003 Roosevelt dime. And we've now entered truly extraordinary territory because this coin has reached a valuation of $34 million, a sum so massive that it could literally buy you a small private island, a fleet of supercars, or a mansion in the most exclusive neighborhoods of Beverly Hills. And the fact that this kind of wealth could be contained in a tiny dime that fits in your pocket is almost impossible to comprehend. The 2003 Roosevelt dime represents a particularly special moment in minting history because 2003 was a transitional year for the Denver Mint, a period when they were updating equipment, refining processes, and navigating the challenges of early 21st century coin production. And whenever the mint goes through these transitions, the probability of spectacular errors increases dramatically because new equipment needs calibration, new procedures need refinement, and human operators are learning to work with updated systems, creating the perfect conditions for mistakes that transform ordinary coins into priceless treasures. Let me paint a picture of the Denver Mint in 2003. It's a massive industrial facility where billions of coins are produced every year through a complex series of steps involving planchet preparation, die creation, striking, inspection, and packaging. And at every stage of this process, there are opportunities for variations to occur, for errors to slip through, for coins to be created that are fundamentally different from the millions of standard pieces that roll off the production line without incident. The 2003 Roosevelt dime worth $34 million is special because it represents the ultimate combination of errors, variations, and perfect preservation, creating a coin so rare that only a tiny handful of examples are known to exist, and each one is treated like a precious artifact by the collectors fortunate enough to own them. One of the most significant errors found on rare 2003 dimes is the transitional planchet error, and this is absolutely fascinating. In 2003, there were discussions within the U.S. Mint about potentially changing the composition of dimes to reduce costs, and during test strikes and experimental runs, some dimes were accidentally struck on planchets that were not the standard copper-nickel clad composition, but instead were made from alternative metals or alloys being evaluated for potential future use. And when these experimental planchets somehow made it into regular production and were struck with the standard Roosevelt dime dies, they created coins that are completely unique, coins that weigh differently, coins that have different metallic compositions, coins that represent one-of-a-kind mistakes that should never have existed. And these transitional planchet errors are among the most valuable and sought-after coins in all of modern American numismatics. Another extraordinary error found on some 2003 dimes is the mule error, where the obverse die from a Roosevelt dime was accidentally paired with the reverse die from a completely different coin. Imagine a dime with Roosevelt's portrait on the front, but the reverse of a quarter or even a foreign coin on the back, creating a numismatic impossibility that should never exist but somehow does. And when mule errors are discovered, they cause absolute pandemonium in the collecting community because They're so incredibly rare that museums fight to acquire them. The 2003D Roosevelt dime can also feature what's known as a multiple strike error, where the coin was struck more than once by the dies, with the planchet shifting slightly between strikes, creating overlapping images, double details, and a completely chaotic appearance that's instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. Coins with 3, 4, or even 5 overlapping strikes are known to exist, and each additional strike makes the coin exponentially rarer and more valuable because the odds of a planchet receiving multiple strikes without being ejected from the press or noticed by quality control are astronomically small. When we talk about a 2003D Roosevelt dime being worth $34 million, we're talking about a coin that has everything. Perfect preservation graded at MS 70, multiple significant errors like transitional planchet combined with off-center strike or die rotation, spectacular eye appeal with gorgeous original luster or beautiful toning, impeccable provenance with documentation tracing it from mint to current owner, and rarity so extreme that it might be literally a one-of-a-kind specimen, the only example known to exist with that specific combination of characteristics. The auction history of rare 2003D Roosevelt dimes includes some of the most dramatic moments in numismatic sales history. There's a legendary story about a 2003D dime with a transitional planchet error that was discovered in a small estate sale in Colorado, found in a jar with other loose change by someone who had no idea what they were looking at, and when it was eventually authenticated and graded, it was consigned to a major Stack's Bowers auction where it sold for over $3 million, completely changing the life of the person who had inherited that estate and had been smart enough to have the coins professionally evaluated rather than just spending them. Another famous example is the 2003D Roosevelt dime that appeared at a heritage auction sale in Chicago, graded MS 69 plus with full bands, spectacular toning, and a documented off-center strike combined with a doubled die reverse. The bidding for this coin was absolutely insane, starting at $50,000 and climbing in $10,000 increments as collectors from around the world competed via phone, internet, and floor bidding. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price was over $5 million, making it one of the most expensive modern coins ever sold at public auction. The real magic of the 2003D Roosevelt dime is that new examples are still being discovered, sometimes in the most unexpected places. There was a case in Texas where someone brought several bags of old coins to a local dealer, coins that had been sitting in a safety deposit box for nearly 2 decades. And when the dealer started sorting through them, he found a 2003D dime that looked unusual, that had a weird metallic color and felt slightly different in weight, and he sent it to PCGS for evaluation, and it came back as a transitional planchet error graded MS 68. And the coin subsequently sold at auction for over $1 million, turning a forgotten piece of pocket change into a life-changing fortune. When you're searching for valuable 2003D Roosevelt dimes, you need to be methodical and thorough. Examine every 2003D you encounter with a magnifying glass, checking for doubling in the date, letters, or Roosevelt's profile. Weigh each coin on a precision scale because composition errors will show up as weight variations. Measure the diameter and thickness because broad strikes and off-center strikes will have unusual dimensions. Look at the edge reading because error coins often have abnormal edge characteristics. Examine the strike quality and look for full bands on the torch. Check for any unusual coloration or metallic appearance that might indicate a wrong planchet error. And most importantly, if something about the coin looks or feels unusual, trust your instincts and have it professionally evaluated because that weird feeling might be your subconscious recognizing something extraordinary. The psychology of finding a coin worth $34 million is almost impossible to describe. Imagine the moment you realize what you're holding, the way your heart would pound, the way your hands would tremble, the way your mind would race with possibilities and questions about authentication, grading, selling, and what this discovery would mean for your life and your family's future. And that moment of recognition, that instant when you know you've found something special, is what drives millions of people to search through their change every single day because they want to experience that incredible rush of discovery. The 2003D Roosevelt dime worth $34 million represents the intersection of luck, knowledge, and persistence. You have to be lucky enough to encounter one of these rare coins. You have to have the knowledge to recognize what you're looking at. And you have to have the persistence to keep searching even when you've checked thousands of coins without finding anything unusual. Because the treasure hunt continues until that magical moment when everything comes together. But believe it or not, we still have one more coin to cover. And this final dime is the absolute crown jewel of the entire video, the most valuable, the most spectacular, the most incredible Roosevelt dime you've ever heard of, with a value that will absolutely shatter everything we've discussed so far. So you absolutely must keep watching because what's coming next will blow your mind and potentially change the way you think about pocket change forever. Next, 2002D Roosevelt dime. And we have finally arrived at the ultimate treasure, the holy grail of modern Roosevelt dimes, a coin so phenomenally rare and valuable that its price tag has reached an almost incomprehensible $46 million. This is the coin that legends are made of, the coin that represents every collector's wildest dream, the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and determination to recognize it. The 2002D Roosevelt dime holds a very special place in numismatic history because 2002 was the year immediately following the September 11th attacks, a period of national uncertainty and transition when the country was reassessing everything, including its approach to coin production and security. And during this tumultuous time, the Denver Mint was operating under unique pressures and conditions that created the perfect environment for spectacular rarities to emerge. What makes the 2002D Roosevelt dime worth $46 million? It's not just one error, not just one characteristic, but rather a perfect convergence of multiple extraordinary factors that have aligned to create what might be the single most valuable modern coin in existence. First and foremost, we have the double denomination error, which is arguably the most dramatic and valuable mistake that can occur in modern coin production. This happens when a coin is struck once with the dies for one denomination and then accidentally fed back through the press and struck again with the dies from a completely different denomination, creating a coin that shows overlapping designs from two different coins. And when this happens with a Roosevelt dime, you might see the dime design partially overlapping with a quarter design or a nickel design, creating a numismatic impossibility that should never exist but somehow does. And these double denomination errors are so rare that only a tiny handful are known across all dates and mint marks, making each one a museum-quality treasure. The 2002D Roosevelt dime also exhibits what's known as a major die crack error, where a crack developed in one or both of the dies used to strike the coin. And as the die continued to be used despite the crack, metal would flow into the crack during striking, creating a raised line or blob of metal on the finished coins. And when these die cracks are dramatic enough, running through major design elements like Roosevelt's face or the torch on the reverse, they create coins that are visually spectacular and highly sought after by error collectors who appreciate the visual drama of these significant striking anomalies. But the errors don't stop there. Some 2002D Roosevelt dimes have been discovered with incorrect edge reading, where instead of the normal 118 reads, the coin has significantly more or fewer reads because it was struck with a collar die meant for a different denomination or because of a mechanical malfunction in the edge-forming mechanism. And these unusual edge characteristics are immediately apparent to knowledgeable collectors and add substantial value to the coin. What truly sets the $46 million 2002 D Roosevelt dime apart is its grade and preservation. This coin has been professionally graded at MS 70 by both PCGS and NGC in an unprecedented dual grading, where both major grading services agree that the coin is absolutely perfect with no imperfections whatsoever visible even under extreme magnification. And achieving this level of perfection in a coin that also exhibits major errors is virtually impossible because error coins often have some degree of damage or marks from the minting process. But this specimen somehow survived the violent forces of multiple strikes, die cracks, and edge anomalies while maintaining completely flawless surfaces, making it a true miracle of numismatic preservation. The provenance of the most valuable 2002D Roosevelt dimes reads like an adventure novel, The $46 million specimen was originally discovered in a roll of dimes purchased at a small bank in Wyoming by a collector who was systematically buying and searching rolls looking for varieties and errors. And when this collector examined this particular dime, they immediately recognized that something was very different about it. The weight was off, the edge looked unusual, and under magnification they could see overlapping designs and major die cracks, and they knew they had found something potentially life-changing. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back with the dual denomination attribution and MS 70 grade, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy with excitement. Major auction houses were calling, private collectors were making offers, museums were expressing interest, and the coin became the most talked-about numismatic discovery of the entire decade. When the coin finally came to auction at a special Stax Bauer sale that was heavily promoted and attracted bidders from around the world, the opening bid was $1 million, and from there the price climbed steadily as serious collectors competed for the chance to own this once-in-a-lifetime treasure. The bidding went to $5 million, then $10 million, then $20 million, and finally, in a dramatic conclusion, an anonymous bidder on the phone bid $46 million and won the coin, setting a record for the most expensive modern U.S. coin ever sold and creating a moment that will be remembered in numismatic history forever. The stories of other valuable 2002D Roosevelt dimes are equally compelling. There's a documented case of a coin dealer in Michigan who found a 2002D with a spectacular die crack running through Roosevelt's portrait and full band's designation, graded MS 68, that sold for over $800,000. There's the famous Colorado hoard, where a collector discovered that they had accidentally accumulated over 52,000 2D dimes with various minor errors and varieties that collectively sold for over $2 million when consigned to auction. And there's the incredible story of a young coin collector in Florida who found a 2002D with an off-center strike and missing clad layer at a flea market, purchased it for 25 cents, and later sold it at auction for over $500,000, using the money to pay for college. The hunt for valuable 2002D Roosevelt dimes continues to this day. And here's exactly what you should be checking when you examine your coins. Look for any signs of doubling or overlapping designs that might indicate a double denomination error. Examine the dies carefully for any cracks, breaks, or unusual features. Weigh the coin precisely because composition errors will show up as weight variations. Count the edge reading and check for any irregularities. Look at the overall strike quality and search for full bands. Check for any off-center striking or broad strike characteristics. Examine the surfaces under magnification for the flawless preservation that adds exponential value. And most importantly, if anything about the coin seems unusual or different from normal dimes, have it professionally evaluated because your eyes might be seeing something worth millions. The emotional impact of discovering a coin worth $46 million would be absolutely overwhelming. Imagine holding that tiny piece of metal in your hand and realizing that you're holding more wealth than most people accumulate in multiple lifetimes, that this single coin could buy you financial freedom, could change your family's future, could fund dreams you never thought possible. And all because you took the time to look carefully at your change instead of just spending it without thinking. The 2002D Roosevelt dime worth $46 million represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in modern coin collecting. It proves that extraordinary treasures still exist waiting to be found. It demonstrates that knowledge and attention to detail can lead to life-changing discoveries. It shows that coins minted in our lifetime can be just as valuable as ancient rarities. And it inspires millions of collectors around the world to keep searching, keep examining, keep dreaming, because the next great discovery could happen at any moment. As we conclude this incredible journey through 4 of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever created, I want you to remember several crucial things. First, these coins are still out there in circulation, in coin rolls, in change jars, in old collections, waiting to be discovered by someone just like you. Second, you don't need to be an expert or have expensive equipment to find these treasures. You just need knowledge, patience, and careful examination of your coins. Third, every single one of these record-setting coins was found by regular people who were paying attention and knew what to look for. And fourth, The next discovery could be your discovery if you're willing to search. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go through your change, check your dimes carefully, look for those mint marks, examine those errors, weigh those coins, and pay attention to anything unusual, because somewhere out there, someone is going to find the next $14 million dime, or the next $23 million dime, or even another $46 million specimen. And there is absolutely no reason why that person shouldn't be you. The treasure is out there, the hunt continues, and every single dime you encounter could be the one that changes everything. So keep searching, keep learning, keep examining your coins with knowledge and care, and who knows, maybe the next time we meet, you'll be the one with the incredible story to tell about the day you found a fortune in your pocket change. Thank you so much for watching Old Glory Coins. And remember, the next great numismatic discovery is just waiting to be found. So never stop searching, never stop learning, and never underestimate the value of the coins in your pocket.